Worked tremendously well with our problem solvers on this issue. What I want to see is us get as quickly as possible to renewable energy, green energy jobs, renewable energy to get off this fossil fuel it's a national security issue based on where we're getting it from, and it's also an environmental hazard. We have a whole host of environmental problems that we have to tackle. Climate change is a huge issue, and it is caused by human activity. Water pollution, particularly in this region. I spent a lot of my time. In fact, we just had a very, very spirited meeting with the DOD this week to get a resolution once and for all to the water contamination that was caused by DOD and the manufacturers of these chemicals, by the way, that are responsible for that. Coming out of the FBI, right? You come into Congress and you see all these problems, and I spent a lot of my time scratching my head saying, how haven't these things been accomplished? How's that possible? And speaking of accomplishments, I'm just going to give you a few. And this is directly linked to bipartisan, independent thinking, because you're able to get things done when you're not a hardcore Republican or a hardcore Democrat. Children of Fallen Heroes Scholarship Fund. It's been sitting in Congress for 10 years. It deals with funding the education for the children of police officers, firefighters, medics, who die in the line of duty to make sure their kids are taken care of. Many of you may know the story of my great uncle Phil, who was a New York City police officer, killed in the line of duty. His kids weren't taken care of. Danny Faulkner, his kids weren't taken care of. Danny McIntosh's kids weren't taken care of. After 10 years sitting in Congress, we picked it up this year. Myself and Brendan Boyle, a Republican and a Democrat, were friends. We got it through the House, through the Senate, signed into law by the President. The Right to Try Act, been sitting in Congress for years. It allows the terminally ill patients in this country who have exhausted all remedies to have access to life-saving treatment for things that are not fully the way through the FDA pipeline. ALS is the perfect example. Once diagnosed with ALS, you typically have 2 to 5 years, unfortunately. It could take 10 to 12 years to get a drug fully through the FDA pipeline. So what the Right to Try Act does is, when all other options have been exhausted, when liability provisions are in place, patient certification, doctor certification, manufacturer certification, and they're not eligible for the compassionate use exception, which is a pathway that currently exists under FDA protocol. They've exhausted all other options and they're terminal. Why not give them that access to some of these experimental drugs that are through phase 1, by the way, of the FDA pipeline, which is a safety protocol, but haven't made their way fully through the pipeline? These are terminal patients. They want access to this treatment. It's important for them. It's not a panacea. It's not guaranteed to work, but at least it gives them hope. And it also gives family members the peace of mind knowing that they left no stone unturned in saving the life of their loved one, for their peace of mind going forward, which is very important. Years and years I was sitting in the House. Pharma was dead set against it. We battled through, and I authored the bill, through the House, through the Senate, signed into law by the President. Opioids, huge problem in our community. 9 out of 10 cases of abuse start legally in the medicine cabinet, fed illegally through the use of heroin. 9 out of 10 of the ODs, the overdoses, are a result of heroin that's laced with a synthetic called fentanyl, or in the more extreme cases, carfentanil, which is manufactured in China, predominantly taking the path of the Sinaloa corridor, mostly gravitating towards the high demand areas, which unfortunately for us is the northeastern part of the United States and Canada. It is killing an entire generation of our kids. Killing them. I can't tell you how many funerals I've been to. The Interdict Act, because in the case of carfentanil, the size of a grain of salt on your fingertip, mere skin contact can result in an overdose, which is why a lot of our first responders and medics, police officers, are having to go through hazmat training now, because they're putting themselves at risk of exposure and an overdose just by responding to these scenes. We have equipped the border crossings, the mail consignment facilities, the ports of entry with scientific screening equipment and chemists around the clock to interpret results to cut down on the supply of fentanyl. If we cut down the supply of fentanyl, which we are now doing, we're going to reduce the supply of this stuff on the streets, which invariably is going to save lives. We got it through the House, bipartisan bill, myself and Nikki Sungus, through the House, through the Senate, signed into law by the President. By the way, the Right to Try, myself and Kirsten Sinema, my Democrat colleague from Arizona, worked on. Bipartisanship gets things done. It gets things done. The Hatfield and McCoy, where you're judging people based on their party, leads to gridlock. It's that simple. That's the solution to our country's problems.
We're running low on questions here, so if you have questions, get a card. Your opponent has refused contributions from corporations. What corporations have funded your campaign?
He has not refused. He has accepted them. He has accepted them. So that's a false premise in the question. And I am not an inherited multimillionaire. I didn't inherit $300 million. So I actually have to raise money to run a campaign. And if we want the model in this country to be that the only people we're going to have in Congress, and I will tell you, having been there for a year and a half now, there's two things that we have too many of in Congress: hyper-partisans and multimillionaires. Scott Wallace is both. He's both. So, are we good?
Do you think the FBI should have investigated Kavanaugh?
I think they're going to now, and they should. Like I want to just I want to remind everybody, because it's an organization that I love, and that comes out with everybody I talk to. It was literally, I was sick to my stomach when I had to make that tough decision to leave. I love that organization more than anybody could ever realize. The most amazing women and men I have ever known in my life. And I have been a staunch defender of them, and I will continue. And let me tell you that these people are doing everything they can to keep everybody here safe. And the day I left the FBI, January of 2016, we had active ISIS investigations in all 50 states in this country, including here in Pennsylvania. Not insignificant cases. These people are doing amazing jobs. My last case in LA, my last counterterrorism case was San Bernardino. Really important work. And these people are phenomenal at what they do. I think they should investigate. I think they will. And they will find the facts. Now, the FBI doesn't conclude. They don't come to conclusions. They interview people, they present the facts, and they let other people decide.
Okay. What was not asked today that you would like us all to know?
We covered a lot of ground here.
That's it.
Okay? All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.